There are names that echo in the underworld like ghost stories. Whispers in alleyways. Half-truths passed over flickering candlelight. And one of them was his. V. A man stitched into the seams of velvet darkness. Notorious. Untouchable. Beautiful in the way winter is beautiful. Cold, silent, and capable of killing you if you stay too long. No one knew his real name. No one dared ask. They only knew the stories, the gunfire, the betrayals, the elegance of it all. He didn't run the city, he ruled its silence. If a deal was too dangerous, too delicate, or too dirty, it went through him. And yet, it was not bullets or blades that made him infamous. It was how he never raised his voice. How he never touched violence, only whispered to it. How, beneath all the blood-stained suits and glassy stares, he was searching for something no one could give him. Something clean. Something like her. The first time she saw him, he was watching the rain fall outside a cathedral window. She didn't even know his name then. He had entered the back pew after everyone else had left, the black of his coat blending into the church's dim corners, his breath fogging the glass faintly as he stood, statuesque and ghostly. She wasn't supposed to be there either. She was only hiding. From her father's debts. From the men who knocked too late at night. From a life that never asked what she wanted, only told her what she owed. And yet, in that moment, V turned around. He didn't smile. Didn't speak. But something in his eyes, something in the stillness of him, made the air feel like a secret. She saw him again a week later. This time, not by accident. A black car pulled up outside her apartment, too clean for the neighborhood, too quiet to be normal. A man in a suit stepped out and handed her a card with only a symbol, a gold V, pressed into velvet paper. "He'd like to speak with you." She should have said no. She should have run. But when your life is a corner with no exits, even a door marked "Danger" looks like hope. The room was dim, lit only by a fireplace. He sat across from her like a sculpture carved into the darkness, sharp lines, wine glass in hand, the fire flickering in his obsidian eyes. "I can make your father's debt disappear," he said softly, with a voice like evening rain. "But nothing in this world is free." She swallowed. "What do you want from me?" He didn't blink. "A year." "A year of what?" "Your company," he said. "Nothing more. No lies. No love. Just time." She stared at him, at the man who had every reason to break her, but didn't. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you don't look at me like they do." And so the deal was struck. No chains. No cages. Just silence and a promise. 12 months in the shadows of the Mafia, by the side of a man who was never meant to feel anything at all. They called him V. And she was about to learn why. The mansion wasn't what she expected. No gold, no marble fountains, no parade of bodyguards. Just space. Silence wrapped in architecture. Tall windows, books without dust, rooms so clean they felt empty, like someone lived there without really living. It didn't feel like a king's palace. It felt like a cage built by someone who had once wanted to escape, but gave up halfway through. V didn't explain the rules. He didn't have to. He left a room when she entered. He stayed behind closed doors. She only saw him at night, sitting by the fire, always alone, suit jacket tossed lazily on the chair beside him, glass of something dark in his hand, eyes tracing patterns in flames. "You don't speak much," she said one evening, her voice barely a ripple. He glanced at her but didn't answer. "Is that part of the deal?" she asked. "No words." V blinked slowly, then whispered. "Words make things real." There was a pause. "And some things," he added, "should never be real." She didn't know what to say to that. So she said nothing. But that night, she left a blanket on the armchair across from him before going to bed. The next morning, it was folded neatly on her own. Days blurred. Nights deepened. There were no parties. No deals in front of her. No blood. But shadows lingered around every corner, in the whispers of the guards, in the quick glances of men who bowed too low when V walked past. She overheard things. A brother who betrayed him. A woman who once tried to kill him. A mother who disappeared before he could speak his first word. And then, the worst one. He doesn't feel love. Never has. He was born broken. She didn't believe in broken people. She believed in people who were never taught how to be whole. One rainy night, she found him in the piano room. He didn't know she was there at first. His back was turned, fingers gliding across ivory keys like they were made of breath and bone. He played without sheet music, without effort, but every note felt like a question, like grief spelled out in sound. She leaned in the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. And then, he stopped. "That song," she whispered. "What is it?" "It doesn't have a name," he replied. She stepped closer. "Did you write it?" He nodded once. "It sounds like sorrow," she said softly. "But it ends like hope." V turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting hers across the dim light. "It ends like a lie," he murmured. That night, she cried into her pillow without knowing why. Maybe because she saw someone drowning without a single splash. Maybe because she wanted to pull him out, even if he never asked. Maybe because she was starting to fall for a man who had warned her not to. One morning, she didn't wake up. Her body gave out. Too much stress. Not enough food. Weeks of living on the edge of fear. When she opened her eyes, she was in a different room. Warmer. Quiet. And he was there. V. Sitting by her bedside with his jacket off, sleeves rolled, hand holding hers, so lightly it felt like a secret. He didn't notice she'd woken. He just sat there, looking at her like she was something holy. "Don't die," he whispered. "I didn't bring you here to disappear." She blinked, tears sliding sideways across her cheek. "You're not allowed to care about me," she said. His jaw clenched. "I know." And yet, after that, he started leaving her notes. Little things. Quiet things. "Don't skip breakfast. Wear a coat tonight. The moon looks better from the west balcony." She kept every single one. Folded them under her pillow like prayers. She didn't know what it meant, this thing between them. Was it care? Guilt? Loneliness? Or love disguised as everything else? All she knew was that V, the man feared by the underworld, began to flinch at her sadness. He began to soften. And softness, in his world, was dangerous. Some people leave with a scream. Others disappear with silence. The woman before her had vanished without a trace. No photos. No name. Just a rumor. V once loved her. And she tried to kill him. No one told her more than that. But she could see the ghosts in his eyes whenever someone mentioned betrayal. It wasn't just pain. It was shame. As if he blamed himself for letting someone in. And now he was letting her in too. Slowly. Quietly. She caught him watching her sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking. Not like a man observing a contract. Like someone memorizing something fragile, afraid it would be taken away. And he began to ask her things. Simple questions. What did you want to be before all this? What's your favorite time of day? Do you believe in soulmates? She answered honestly, every time. And each answer seemed to crack something in him, not painfully, but gently. Like a window that had been stuck shut, finally letting in air. But peace in his world never lasted. One evening, just as dusk melted into the city skyline, V got a call. His hand tightened on the phone. His eyes darkened. She was across the room when he said only 3 words. Keep her safe. She didn't see him for 2 days. The guards doubled. The windows were locked. The air changed, heavier, restless. And on the 3rd night, she woke to shouting. A scuffle outside her door. A sharp cry. A sound like thunder. She ran, barefoot, breathless, down the hallway, heart pounding. And found him bleeding. V was on the floor, one hand braced against the wall, a gash across his side. His men were dragging someone away, a traitor, she later learned. Someone who had gotten too close. Too close to her. "Why?" she cried, kneeling beside him. "Why didn't you tell me?" He looked at her, face pale, voice low. "Because I knew you'd run. And you still tried to protect me," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "I don't care what happens to me. But if anything touched you." He paused, jaw trembling. I wouldn't survive it. She pressed her hand against the wound, her fingers shaking. This wasn't part of the deal, she said through tears. You weren't supposed to make me care. He laughed, but it cracked midway. You were the only part of the deal that wasn't a lie. And then, finally, he said her name. Whispered like a prayer. Or a goodbye. Later, when the doctor left and the bleeding stopped, she stayed beside him. They didn't talk. She just held his hand, and he didn't let go. Outside, it started to rain again. The same quiet rain from the night they met. Days passed. The world outside continued to burn, but inside, something was healing. He brought her flowers one morning. Not roses. Not grand. Just wild forget-me-nots. The kind that grow in secret. They reminded me of you, he said, almost embarrassed. Because they're quiet, she asked. He shook his head. Because they survive where nothing else does. But love in a world like his was a loaded gun. And someone had pulled the trigger. She found the note tucked into one of the books he left on her shelf. They know what you mean to him. Leave now, before they make him watch you die. She packed a bag with trembling hands. Tried to leave without saying goodbye. But he found her at the door. Don't go, V said, his voice low, eyes full of something she'd never seen before. Not command. Not fear. Desperation. If I stay, they'll come for me, she said. And they'll use me to break you. They can't break me, he whispered. They already have, she replied, placing her hand on his chest. You just never admitted it. And then she did the one thing he never expected. She stepped closer. So close he could hear her breath. Feel her sadness. And she kissed his forehead. Gently. Slowly. Like sealing a memory. If this is the only version of love I get with you, she said, voice breaking, then I'll carry it for the rest of my life. She turned to leave. And he didn't stop her. Because loving someone sometimes means letting them go before the world takes them from you. Time passed like ash in the wind. She disappeared from the city, changed her name, buried her past beneath layers of normalcy. No more bodyguards. No locked doors. Just silence again. But a different kind. The lonely kind. And every night, she replayed their last moment in her mind, the way he looked at her like she was the last piece of something he never thought he'd find. She tried to move on. But you can't outrun love that never got to finish its sentence. Meanwhile, in the city's darkest corner, V had gone silent. Rumors said he vanished. Others claimed he died. But the truth was crueler. He was alive. But nothing inside him was. He returned to his mansion, to the piano room, to the same lonely fireplace where her laughter once lived. And every time he touched a glass, he saw her fingers. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her leaving, that look on her face that said, I'm trying to survive the goodbye you wouldn't say. And then, one winter evening, she came back. Not because the world was safe, but because she realized something. It was never about safety. It was about choosing to stay, even when it hurt. She walked up the steps of the mansion with shaking hands, heart pounding. The door opened before she knocked. And there he was, V, standing like a man who had spent 1,000 days waiting for a miracle he didn't believe in. He didn't say her name. He just stared, as if afraid that blinking would erase her. And then, slowly, so slowly, he stepped forward. She thought he might say something poetic. Or cold, or apologetic, but instead, he simply opened his arms. Like he had nothing left to offer but everything he was. She fell into him. No hesitation. Her arms wrapped around his waist. His around her shoulders. And for the first time since she met him, V broke. Not with violence. Not with rage. But with a sound, raw, soft, like a sob stuck between love and regret. I'm sorry I let you go, he whispered into her hair. I thought it would save you. It almost killed me, she replied, pressing her face into his chest. But I'd die 1,000 times to hear your voice again. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Because sometimes a hug is the most sacred language. The kind that says, I see you. I miss you. I love you. and I'm never letting go again. Months later, after the storm had passed, she found it. Hidden in a drawer behind his piano, a letter with her name on it, never delivered. She unfolded it with trembling fingers and read, "If I ever lose you, know this. You were the only thing that felt real in a world made of lies. If there is another life, I hope I meet you there first, so I can love you without fear." She pressed the letter to her chest and cried, but this time not out of pain, out of finally being seen. She stood there, eyes closed, holding the letter like it was made of breath and memory. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt whole. Not because the world had changed, not because the past had vanished, but because someone had looked at all her cracks and stayed anyway. She turned slowly, and there he was. No longer a shadow in a suit, no longer a myth built on fear. Just him. The man who never knew how to love, until her silence taught him how. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Some stories don't end in grand gestures. Some stories end in arms that finally feel like home. And in the space between heartbreak and healing, they chose each other. Quietly. Completely. Forever.